Hello there, and welcome to Sleep Science 360. I'm glad you made it here tonight. Maybe your day felt heavy, or maybe you're the kind of person who drifts into sleep more easily when your mind wanders through quiet, ancient places instead of counting sheep. Either way, this is your moment to soften. Your breath slows. Your body grows warm and still, as if the weight of the day has gently loosened its hold. You can rest now, low and easy, because tonight we aren't chasing stars. We're drifting backward through time, into the silent rooms of civilizations that shaped the world long before your name was ever spoken. Stone by stone, breath by breath, their stories settled into the earth and waited thousands of years for someone calm enough to hear them. History moves slowly, yet it always finds its way back to a quiet heart. So let your mind drift as we follow 100 sleepy facts through deserts, temples, moonlit rivers, and cities that dream beneath the sand. And as you breathe, the ancient world begins to open. We drift now into the first quiet layer of history, a place where the world feels slower, as if every grain of sand has been holding the memory of someone's footsteps for thousands of years. The night around us settles like old linen, soft with age, warm with the breath of distant civilizations that once whispered their stories to the wind. You breathe softly, and the universe exhales through you. In these early moments, the ancient world opens in gentle fragments. A simple clay pot drying beneath the sun of Mesopotamia, a reed boat gliding on the wide, calm ribbon of the Nile, a lantern glowing behind a carved wooden door in an early Chinese village. Each detail rests quietly in the dark, the way embers cradle their last warmth after dusk. You can rest now, slow and low. The oldest civilizations didn't move fast. The Sumerians wrote in tablets pressed with patient strokes, each symbol a slow heartbeat of a world just learning to record itself. More than 5,000 years have passed since those first wedges of cuneiform hardened in the sun, yet the marks remain, steady and untroubled, like the quiet thoughts you set down in your own mind before sleep. Somewhere across that vast distance of years, light continues to travel, and as we drift deeper, we feel the weight of time in a gentle way. Stone cities rise, not with rush or urgency, but with steady hands, placing one block atop another, the way calm thoughts stack themselves when the mind is ready for rest. In Egypt, workers aligned pyramids with astonishing precision, the sides pointing almost perfectly north, guided by the slow turning of stars at 15 degrees per hour. Such care grew from stillness, not haste. It's okay to drift into that stillness now. Imagine the night on the Giza Plateau. A thin, cool wind moves across the desert, carrying the scent of sand that has known 500 years of moonlight. Torches flicker along long ramps of limestone, their flames steady, almost motionless, as if time itself were reluctant to disturb the moment. This is the rhythm the ancient world lived by, measured, breath-like, unhurried. We walk gently along those spaces in our thoughts. A single footstep feels like it echoes across centuries, yet the echo is soft, like a ripple across still water. You can rest now, soft and slow, The early Indus Valley cities were designed with organized streets, a grid laid out before most of the world even considered the idea of urban planning. Archaeologists discovered drainage systems so cleanly engineered that some segments still channel water today. To imagine such structure existing 2600 BCE is to feel the patience of people who built not for haste, but for generations they would never meet. The idea itself settles in the mind like warm dust. Civilization is the memory of time learning how to breathe. We drift further now, past the first bronze tools, past the rise of early trade routes that carried copper, tin, and soft wool between lands separated by mountain and sea. Even then, travelers moved with calm precision, following the rhythm of footsteps that matched the rise and fall of their own breath. Your body follows that rhythm now, even if faintly. It's okay to drift. Across the world, early Mesoamerican cultures watched the sky and marked the movement of the sun across the horizon, patiently noting where it rose each solstice. Their calendars were not hurried inventions, they grew from thousands upon thousands of sunrises, each one observed with quiet focus. A single sunrise today travels 150 million kilometers to reach your eyes, and yet it touches your skin as softly as it brushed the faces of those long-gone watchers. Somewhere in the quiet between these memories, a whisper of recognition forms, not of facts or dates, but of the way humans everywhere once lived, with a kind of gentle endurance the modern world rarely allows. And in that recognition, you can rest now, slow and low. The first civilizations didn't imagine themselves ancient. To them, time moved like a wide river, steady, calm, certain. Every village fire, every carved stone seal, every plucked string of a harp tuned in a dimly lit Sumerian room was simply a moment lived fully, without rush, without the weight of entire histories yet to come. As we drift through their world, the pressure of our world begins to loosen. Your breath falls into a quieter place. In the quiet between stars, you are remembered. Somewhere on the banks of the Yellow River, a potter shaping wet clay in 3000 BCE turns the wheel slowly, letting the bowl bloom beneath gentle hands. The rhythm is circular, hypnotic, a shape that mirrors the cycles of seasons, the waxing and waning of night. The simple truth that everything old once felt new. And as we drift with that turning, some part of the mind softens into the same warm clay. It's okay to drift. We move through the ancient world not as visitors, but as quiet witnesses, feeling the slow pulse of societies rising gently like the tide. This is history, not as noise or conflict, but as a long exhale stretching across millennia. You breathe softly, and the universe exhales through you. We drift further now, letting the ancient world widen around us like a soft, unfolding tapestry. Nothing sharp, nothing rushed, only the slow unfurling of civilizations that shape the earth with calm endurance. The night holds them gently, the way quiet water holds the reflection of a moon that has watched all of human history pass beneath it. You can rest now, slow and low, in the highlands of Peru, long before the rise of the Inca Empire. Small communities carved terraces into mountainsides. Each step of stone created a cradle for crops, catching sunlight during the day and releasing warmth at night. Some terraces still breathe heat after dusk. As if the past has never fully let go, the stones have held their places for over 1,000 years, and their silence feels familiar, a reminder that even the most fragile human hopes can leave marks that last longer than they intended. We drift along those mountains quietly. The air feels thin, soft, ancient. The world below stretches in muted gold. And though the people who shaped these terraces are long gone, their rhythm remains in the earth. It's okay to drift. Across the sea, in the cradle of the Aegean, the Minoans built palaces with open courtyards where wind moved freely. Light poured into rooms painted with dolphins and lilies, scenes so gentle they seem almost like memories of dreams. Archaeologists discovered that some frescoes still retain vivid color, even after 500 years of sleep beneath volcanic ash. Color that survived millennia becomes a soft reminder that beauty often outlives the hands that made it. We step through that courtyard in thought, the stone cool beneath our imagined feet, the air filled with the faint scent of sea salt carried from a distant shore. Somewhere, light continues to travel. You breathe softly, and the universe exhales through you. Far to the east, along the bend of the Yellow River, a quiet revolution unfolded as early dynasties began refining bronze into tools and ceremonial vessels. The casting process required heat reaching over 1,000 degrees Celsius. Yet the atmosphere surrounding those workshops was not one of haste. It was a deliberate artistry. Metal melting, flowing, settling, just as thoughts settle into place before sleep. You can rest now, soft and low. A poetic line rises like the glow of an ember. Time carves civilizations the way rivers carve stone slowly, patiently, without ever needing to hurry. We drift into the Indus Valley again, this time sensing the faint warmth of hearths that once burned in homes aligned with almost perfect symmetry. Streets followed north, south, and east-west directions, a design so clean that modern planners still marvel at its balance. The cities breathed with intention, their wells deep, their public baths wide, their walls smooth with fired brick, hardened in kilns, reaching 700 degrees Celsius. In their quietness, these cities feel like thoughts long forgotten, yet somehow familiar. It's okay to drift. Farther west, on the banks of the Tigris, scribes dipped reeds into ink and copied stories, first told aloud beneath fading sunsets. One tablet speaks of a great flood, another of a friendship between heroes, another of a king seeking immortality. These stories are more than 4,000 years old, and yet their characters breathe through time with surprising calm. History does not rush. It simply waits to be found when a quiet mind is ready. You can rest now. Slow and low, we drift into the shadow of early pyramids in Sudan, smaller and sharper than those of Giza, rising from the desert like dark, steady breaths. The kingdom of Kush built more pyramids than Egypt, over 200 of them, scattered like ancient constellations across the sand. Their stones hold sunlight from long afternoons and release it slowly into the coolness of night. The warmth feels gentle, almost like a hand resting briefly on your shoulder. In the quiet between stars, you are remembered, somewhere beyond desert and mountain, in early Celtic lands. Stone circles were raised with deliberate care, each stone placed to honor the turning of seasons, to follow the path of midsummer sunrises, to measure time not by seconds, but by light. A single sunrise takes about 8 minutes and 20 seconds to reach Earth. Yet the people who built these circles watched patiently for movements that took entire lifetimes to shift. Such patience welcomes rest. We travel now gently toward the ancient Levant, where early traders moved along routes that shimmered beneath the heat. Caravans carried incense, copper, wool, and gentle news between kingdoms. The journeys were long, but the rhythm of footsteps across sand matched the rhythm of breath, creating a steady cadence that soothed the mind the way repetition soothes thoughts before sleep. You can rest now, slow and low. There is a strange comfort in knowing that across thousands of years, across continents and rivers and oceans, humanity has always moved with the same underlying rhythm, the desire to build, to understand, to breathe, to rest. And as we drift together through these early civilizations, the night settles deeper, warm as ancient clay, still as carved stone, soft as the last glow of a torch fading in a temple corridor. You breathe softly, and the universe exhales through you. Somewhere, light continues to travel. In the deepening calm of the ancient world, civilizations rise and fade like slow-moving tides, each one leaving gentle traces in clay, in stone, in memory. They no longer speak with the noise of markets or the calls of temples. Their presence now is the quiet pulse of what endures. You can let yourself soften now. Göbekli Tepe appears first, a circle of carved pillars resting in the hills of southern Turkey, standing for more than 11,000 years. Older than pottery, older than the wheel, older than the idea of cities. The stones are shaped with a patience that feels almost impossible today. Their surfaces etched with foxes, cranes, wild boar, a catalog of life from a world still discovering structure. Time moves slowly here, as if the earth itself is inhaling. Across the lush forests of Central America, the Maya measured the sky with astonishing precision. Their long count calendar tracked cycles that unfolded across millions of days, and observatories aligned with solstices captured light like still pools catching dawn. The cities rest now in vines and shadow, but the mathematics they carved into architecture remains unbroken, a calm geometry that survived centuries of silence. The mind can settle low with them. Far north, wrapped in drifting mist, the earliest Nordic tales began their journey as spoken memory. For centuries, they lived in warm halls where fire burned at roughly 1,000 degrees Celsius, painting soft gold across wooden beams and illuminating storytellers whose words moved slowly, like embers shifting. When the sagas were finally written down, they carried the softness of voices echoing through time, their edges rounded by countless retellings. Across the Iranian plateau, Persepolis rises with a stillness that feels almost breath-held. Columns stretch upward, each one carved with delegations from faraway kingdoms: Ethiopia, Lydia, Babylon, Egypt approaching the king with offerings for the new year. For 500 years, the stone reliefs have remained calm and deliberate, capturing a moment of unity preserved in a silence deeper than sleep. You can ease into the quiet with them. In Alexandria long ago, knowledge grew leaf by leaf, scroll by scroll. Scholars copied texts by hand, stroke after careful stroke, using ink made of soot and plant gum mixed to a steady, dark sheen. Papyrus sheets were pressed and dried in sun-warmed air, their fibers aligning like lines of thought forming slowly. Nothing rushed. Learning rippled outward in gentle waves. Further south, in the valley of Oaxaca, the early Zapotec people carved glyphs into stone slabs, symbols believed to be among the first written languages of the Americas. Wind moves across that plateau today, carrying grains of dust that touched those stones for 500 years. A soft reminder that trace after trace of human intention continues to echo even when voices fade. Everything can drift in its own gentle way. On the island of Crete, massive pithoi storage jars, large enough to stand in once held grain, wine, and oil. Their surfaces were shaped by slow turning of clay, hands circling rhythmically until vessels formed smooth and strong. The kilns reached 900 degrees Celsius, hardening jars that still survive in palace ruins. Touching one today feels like touching the warmth of someone's steady, ancient labor. High in the Andes, the Inca recorded information not with ink but with quipu strings knotted at precise intervals to track harvests, census counts, and movement of goods across an empire stretching over 4,000 kilometers. A quiet intelligence lived in those knots, each one a tiny pause in fiber, a small resting place for meaning. You can let your thoughts rest like that too loosely, calmly. Across the waves, ancient Polynesian navigators guided canoes using only stars, wind, and the subtle shape of swells. Some stars rose every 23 hours and 56 minutes, their timing steady enough to cross entire oceans. The night sky was a calm map, and they moved through it without urgency, trusting the rhythm of the natural world to guide them home. The mind drifts gently inside such steadiness, and beneath every great tradition, beneath the pottery and the glyphs and the stone reliefs, is the shared truth that early civilizations lived slowly, not in the hurried pulse of modern hours, but in the wide, patient rhythms of sunrise and harvest, season and star. Their pace softens the present moment. Their memory settles around us like warm dust. Their breath becomes the breath of the night itself. You can ease deeper into that softness now. Somewhere in the quiet, light continues to travel. As the ancient landscape widens around us, the world feels carved from quiet intention. Nothing rises abruptly. Nothing demands to be understood at once. Each civilization drifts into view like a soft echo returning across long stone corridors. You can let your breath fall low and easy through the plains of Anatolia. The Hittites shaped treaties on clay tablets, agreements pressed into earth rather than etched into metal. Each line cooled slowly under the sun. The oldest known peace treaty in the world, signed after the Battle of Kadesh, was created nearly 3 300 years ago, and fragments of it still survive, unfolding the story of two kingdoms who chose structure over chaos. Even in distant ages, quiet negotiation held power. The mind can settle into that steadiness, far across the Mediterranean. The Phoenicians carved letters that would later influence alphabets from Greece to Rome. Simple strokes, curved and straight, shaping a system where sound could be captured efficiently. Traders carried these symbols across coasts in ships built from cedar trees centuries old. Their hulls could travel thousands of kilometers, guided by stars mirrored on calm waters. The letters softened as they spread, changing shape the way thoughts soften into dreams. In the high desert of Jordan, Petra sleeps in rose-colored stone. Its facades were carved directly into sandstone cliffs, some towering 40 meters above the valley floor. Wind moves through the narrow seek, a naturally formed passageway less than 3 meters wide at points, creating a soft, low hum as if the canyon itself were breathing. The sound is gentle, almost a vibration against the skin. You can ease into the quiet of that sound. The Nazca lines stretch across the Peruvian desert, geometric figures and animal shapes spanning hundreds of meters. They can only be fully seen from above. Yet, they were created long before aircraft existed. Straight lines run for kilometers, drawn by removing dark stones to reveal pale soil underneath. The desert has preserved them for over 500 years, holding each line with a stillness that feels both enormous and tender. Everything finds its own slow place here. In Mesopotamia, towering ziggurats once rose like massive stairways to the sky. Some foundations span over 60 meters across, their bricks made from clay mixed with straw and dried in the heat of the sun. Workers carried baskets of earth in steady rhythm step. Lift, breathe, hours flowing like water as platforms grew layer by layer. Even the largest structures grew from small, repeated gestures. The same way rest grows from breath. You can let yourself drift in that rhythm. Far in the east, the early Shang dynasty cast bronze vessels so detailed that even modern artisans marvel at their precision. Some weigh over 800 kilograms. Their surfaces patterned with Tao-Te masks. Symmetrical and deeply carved, these ritual vessels were heated until metal flowed like thick light, poured into earthen molds that cracked open once the bronze cooled. The faint fractures in the molds echo faintly like remembered footsteps in a long corridor. Across the Pacific, on Rapa Nui, the Moai stand in long, slow lines, their faces turned inland, their presence carved from volcanic tuff. Some rise over 10 meters tall, their weight reaching 80 tons. Moving them required ropes, rhythm, and a calm communal effort passed through generations. The statues watch the island with an expression that seems neither stern nor joyous, only deeply, serenely present. The world grows quieter beside them. In the river valleys of ancient China, silk production emerged as a delicate craft. A single cocoon could unwind into several hundred meters of fine thread. Women boiled cocoons gently, then drew the silk across small reels, turning and turning until a smooth filament gathered. The sound of silk sliding a soft, whisper-like rasp was considered a sign of prosperity. You can rest into that whisper, and deep within the deserts of Arabia, caravans moved not with haste, but with a long, practiced patience. Camels walked at roughly 3 kilometers per hour, a pace slow enough to resemble meditation. At night, the dunes cooled rapidly, releasing heat gathered during the day, and travelers slept beneath skies so clear that planets cast faint shadows on the sand. The silence of those nights feels very old now, yet somehow completely familiar, all across the world. These civilizations breathed in their own tempo, some fast, many slow, but all moving within the great exhale of time. Their traces remain gentle, like fingerprints pressed into cooling clay. As we drift with them, the present moment thins, softens, loosens its weight. You can let everything fall into place with the quiet. Somewhere in the distance of history, light continues to travel. As the ancient world deepens, its layers fold over one another like gentle sediment in a riverbed. Civilizations appear not as separate stories, but as soft variations of the same human breath shaping stone, shaping ritual, shaping meaning. You can loosen a little more. Along the banks of the Euphrates, Babylon once shimmered with glazed bricks, the color of twilight. The Ishtar Gate, built around 575 BCE, carried rows of lions, dragons, and bulls in tiles fired to a deep cobalt blue, a color created by heating silica and copper compounds to nearly 900 degrees Celsius. The glow was said to catch the evening sun and cast reflections across the polished streets. Even now, replicas preserve that impossible shade, a quiet echo of a city that breathed in brilliant color. Farther east, the Achaemenid Empire built road systems stretching almost 700 kilometers, linking cities through stations where fresh horses waited. Messengers could cross the entire empire in just over a week, a feat unheard of for the time. Yet the roads themselves were calm constructions, stone, soil, wood, placed gently through valleys and deserts without disturbing the natural curve of the land. The mind can drift in its own calm way with that image. Across the Mediterranean, Greek artisans carved marble with slow, deliberate strokes. Stone quarries at Paros and Naxos produced marble so fine that light could pass through its outer layer, giving sculptures a soft, skin-like glow. Phidias and other masters shaped figures whose muscles rested in perpetual calm, shoulders lowered, hands open. Expression as soft as drifting fog. Even gods were depicted in stillness, as if serenity was the highest form of strength. In early Japan, the Jomon people created pottery with chord pattern impressions, pressing twisted ropes into wet clay to form spirals and flowing ridges. Some vessels are more than 14,000 years old. Among the oldest pottery in the world, their surfaces bearing fingerprints from hands long returned to the soil. Fire hardened each piece at a modest 600-700 degrees Celsius, just enough to let form endure without becoming rigid. You can settle into the slow quiet of that endurance. Meanwhile, in ancient Korea, the Silla kingdom shaped golden crowns with delicate branching ornaments inspired by trees and antlers. Some crowns weigh barely 300 grams, light enough to bend with the breath of air. Gold sheets were hammered thin with rhythmic taps that would have echoed softly through palace workshops. The sound of metal becoming luminous felt almost like listening to time take shape. In the Nile Delta, hieroglyph scribes ground pigments from malachite, charcoal, and iron oxide, mixing them with gum arabic until colors softened into a paste. A single tomb painting might require dozens of shades ochre, deep green, dusty blue, each applied in steady brushstrokes that followed the contours of figures facing eternal sunrise. The pigments have lasted 3,0,0,0,4 years with barely any fading, held in darkness and dry air. You can loosen a little more. Far across the Indian subcontinent, the Maurya Empire erected polished sandstone pillars standing up to 12 meters tall. The surfaces were so smooth that even today they reflect faint shapes like calm water at dusk. Some scholars believe the polish required hours of rubbing with fine sand and wet clay, a repetition that mirrors the slow cadence of breath and rest. The inscriptions carved into these pillars speak not of conquest, but of ethics, tolerance, and harmony, stone carrying gentleness across centuries. As we drift deeper through these civilizations, the world begins to feel suspended in a long exhale, a place where every crafted object, every fragment of pigment, every carved lion or quiet inscription reflects the same enduring truth. Human beings once moved slowly enough for meaning to settle into the things they shaped. You can rest inside that pace now, somewhere beyond the horizon of memory. Light continues to travel. The ancient world widens again, opening into regions shaped by wind, sand, and warm human intention. Cultures rise like gentle constellations, each one glowing in its own soft corner of history. The mind can drift a little lower. In ancient Thailand, the Ban Chiang culture forged bronze tools that date back more than 500 years. Some of the earliest evidence of metallurgy in Southeast Asia. Their pottery carries swirling red designs, painted with a steady hand. Lines curving like slow-moving water in a wide basin. The vessels sat in open-air kilns, heated by wood fires that flickered under monsoon skies. The simplicity of the heat, the patience of the craft, settles gently against the senses. Moving into ancient Cambodia, the early Khmer carved temples from sandstone that glows warm at sunrise. Even before Angkor's grandeur, small shrines rose in forests, thick with humidity, their stones stacked with the quiet logic of devotion. One block might weigh over a ton, yet hundreds of them fit together without mortar, only balance. The silence of those early structures feels like the earth remembering its own breath. You can let yourself soften with that memory. Across the Arabian Peninsula, the kingdom of Saba flourished at the crossing of incense roots. Frankincense, resin, fragrant and pale, traveled thousands of kilometers from groves in southern Arabia to markets stretching deep into the Mediterranean. The scent burned in temples, in quiet homes, in royal chambers, a soft smoke rising in thin spirals that mirrored the drifting of ancient thoughts. The tempo of those trade winds still feels slow when imagined now. On the Iranian plateau once more, the Elamites crafted cylinder seals engraved with scenes of gods, animals, and flowing script. Pressed into wet clay, the seals rolled out images that told stories in a single, seamless motion. Some are barely 2 centimeters tall, yet the details remain sharp after millennia, proof that care, even on the smallest scale, can endure beyond empires. The mind drifts gently around such small monuments. Farther north, the Scythians roamed the Eurasian steppe, their lives shaped by wide fields, swift horses, and the wind that never stopped moving. They crafted gold ornaments with astonishing precision, using granulation techniques in which tiny beads of gold, some only 0.3 millimeters wide, were fused to surfaces without melting them. The result shimmered like starlight caught in yellow metal. You can settle deeper into that shimmer. In ancient Ethiopia, the kingdom of Aksum built obelisks carved from single pieces of granite, some rising over 20 meters tall. The stones were shaped with remarkable balance, their surfaces patterned with false doorways and windows meant to echo the architecture of vanished houses. Even in ruin, these monuments feel strangely inhabited, as if the memories of the people who built them still lean softly against the stone. The Berber cultures of North Africa wove textiles with geometric patterns guided by rhythm rather than written design. Lines repeated in quiet cadence, anchored in symmetry that reflected wind patterns. Dune shapes, and constellations used for travel. A single woven band could take days. Its colors drawn from plants, boiled slowly to release soft, earthy pigments. The slowness of that process wraps itself around the present moment. And in the far north of the Americas, the Inuit shaped tools from ivory and bone with gentle, careful pressure. A harpoon head might take hours to carve, its surface polished with sandstone until smooth enough to glide through water. Snow absorbed sound until the world became a vast, softened chamber, temperature falling to 20 degrees Celsius, but the quiet remaining warm. You can loosen further into that quiet. Across continents and centuries, the ancient world hums with the same low tone, a frequency of patience, craft, and the slow unfolding of meaning. Everything moves in wide, deliberate arcs. Everything rests eventually. The breath of history grows softer until it feels like your own, somewhere beyond these drifting ages. Light continues to travel. The ancient world drifts into new contours now, shaped by mountains, steppe winds, monsoon rains, and the steady movement of countless quiet hands. Civilizations no longer appear as distant names, but as slow textures of time, woven into the earth with patience that has long outlasted the moments that formed them. You can let your breath fall deeper. In the shadow of the Caucasus Mountains, the kingdom of Urartu crafted fortresses from basalt blocks cut with remarkable precision. Some walls stretch over 3 meters thick, their stones fitted together so tightly that even centuries of wind have barely loosened the seams. These fortresses overlooked vast lakes where traders moved along shorelines as old as volcanic ash. The silence around them today feels like the slow echo of a world that preferred endurance over speed. On the grassy plains of Kazakhstan, the steppe cultures shaped burial mounds, called kurgans, earth and stone, rising gently above the landscape, some more than 20 meters tall. Inside, wooden chambers were built with beams carefully aligned to support Earth's weight. The air trapped within these spaces preserved textiles, jewelry, and carved wood that survived too. 500 years of cold winters and quiet summers. The world moves softly around such places. The mind can rest against that softness. South of the Caspian Sea, the ancient city of Ray whispered through slopes of clay brick ruins. Kilns burned at 801,000 degrees Celsius. Hardening bricks stamped with geometric patterns so subtle they often feel more like skin texture than decoration. Potters fired bowls with turquoise glazes, colored by copper salts, dissolved into liquid shimmer. When held to the light today, some pieces still glow with the softness of desert dawn. You can drift into that glow with ease. Across the eastern Mediterranean, Cyprus emerged as a quiet cradle of metallurgy. Copper from its mountains fed workshops across the Bronze Age world. Artisans poured molten metal into stone molds that cracked softly as they cooled, releasing tools that would travel thousands of kilometers along trade networks shaped by calm routine. Some copper ingots weighed over 20 kilograms, their oxhide shape designed for easy lifting, their surfaces still bearing fingertip marks from hands that worked in low, rhythmic heat. Everything unfolds slowly here. Farther east, ancient Armenia nurtured vineyards so enduring that some varieties of grape still trace their origins to these early terraces. Clay wine jars, karas, were buried neck-deep in the ground to maintain steady temperatures, allowing fermentation to occur in natural darkness. Residue found in these vessels dates to around 6,000 years ago, making them among the oldest winemaking traces known. The earth itself became part of the process, cradling the jars in cool, steady soil like a breath held gently through night. You can loosen a little more. Across the Indian Ocean, the island of Sri Lanka shaped ancient reservoirs with gravity-fed channels extending for tens of kilometers, designed so precisely that water still flows through portions of these systems today. Stone spillways directed monsoon rains into calm pools that nourished rice fields, glowing green beneath warm equatorial light. The engineering was delicate yet enduring, guided by an understanding of land and water that moved with the gentle patience of seasons. The mind settles naturally in that cadence. In the forests of northern Europe, the early Baltic peoples carved wooden idols from oak trees darkened by time. Some figures stand barely 40 centimeters tall, their surfaces softened by centuries of moisture, yet still carrying faint impressions of eyes, arms, and flowing lines. Oak preserved in peat bogs takes on a deep, quiet blackness, grain patterns smoothing into gentle waves. Holding such a figure feels like holding the echo of a vanished thought. You can rest inside that echo. At the edges of the Sahara, the Garamantian kingdom carved Foggara tunnels beneath desert sands, underground channels stretching for tens of kilometers that drew groundwater from highlands to settlements in the valley. The tunnels were cool, narrow, lit by air shafts rising like thin breaths from the earth. Movement through these spaces would have sounded muted. A soft shuffle, a distant drip of water traveling towards sunlit fields. In that hush, the present moment slides gently aside. Everything ancient seems to hum with the same quiet frequency, stone warmed by dawn, clay cooling in evening air, metal cooling in its mold, wind moving through empty corridors where footsteps once paused. You can lean into that frequency, letting your thoughts settle like dust drifting through a sunbeam. Somewhere across the long span of time, light continues to travel. The ancient world stretches farther now, its landscapes shifting from wide deserts to forests thick with quiet rain, to coasts where stone meets water in long, unbroken sighs. The mind can drift lower under that slow horizon, along the shores of the Levant. The Nabateans shaped caravan cities from rock and sand, their trade routes threading across valleys where echoes traveled for seconds before dissolving into warm air. Cisterns carved deep into cliffs captured winter rain with elegant precision, some holding thousands of cubic meters of water, a calm mastery of land and season. You can let your breath follow that calm. To the south, in ancient Yemen, the Marib Dam once spanned over half a kilometer, gathering monsoon runoff and guiding it into orchards that bloomed even in the driest months. Its foundations date back nearly 3,000 years, and portions of the stone channel still guide water through dusty soil today. The dam's rhythm was the rhythm of life itself, water inhaled, water released. A breathing landscape. You can soften into that rhythm. Across the African savannas, the Nok culture shaped terracotta heads with serene, almond-shaped eyes and gentle, rounded features that seem to look past time rather than through it. Many pieces date back over 500 years. Their surfaces fired in open pits where temperature rose and fell with the shifting breath of wind. Some sculptures retain traces of red slip, a pigment that still glows faintly when caught by low afternoon light. The world grows quieter in that glow. On the island of Malta, ancient builders raised megalithic temples older than the pyramids and Stonehenge, some constructed around 3,600 BCE. Their stones form curved chambers with ceilings that once echoed with slow, chanting tones used in ritual. Acoustic studies show that a voice humming inside these rooms creates standing waves, amplifying sound until it vibrates against the skin. Even imagined, the sensation is warm and steady. You can rest inside that vibration. Across the Indian subcontinent, the early Dravidian cultures carved rock-cut temples into hillsides, each chamber dark and cool, guided by the movement of chisels tapping stone thousands of times. Some complexes include corridors more than 50 meters long. Their pillars align so precisely that shadows fall in repeating patterns even as centuries slip by. In those shadows lies the quiet weight of devotion, not loud, not sharp, just steady as the earth. The mind can ease into that steadiness. In the open plains of Eastern Europe, the Cucuteni Tripilia culture painted pottery with spirals, concentric circles, and flowing lines in red, black, and white. Some vessels stand over 1 meter tall, their patterns so intricate they appear almost woven. The designs mimic fire, wind, and the slow pulse of life around them. Kilns reached 700-800 degrees Celsius, enough to let colors sink deep into clay, so that thousands of years later they still hold warmth in their curves. You can let the warmth settle in your chest. Across the northern Silk Road, oasis towns shimmered beneath the desert sun, their walls built from mud brick mixed with straw and salt. Travelers approached slowly, their footsteps stirring dust that had slept for months at a time. Some towns grew around springs that bubbled with steady flow, just a few liters per second, yet enough to sustain entire communities. Water that gentle can guide the body toward rest. Farther east, in the rice terraces of the Philippines, Ifugao farmers carved mountains into stairways of green. Some terraces stretch for over 10,000 square kilometers. Their stone retaining walls fitted so precisely that many still hold after 2,000 years of rain. The terraces capture sunlight in quiet pools during planting season, reflecting the sky in broken mirrors of gold and blue. Standing among them feels like standing inside a slowed heartbeat. You can drift in the pause between those heartbeats. The ancient world, in all its vast and gentle forms, breathes with a patience that softens the present moment. Stone cools, clay holds warmth, wind travels through abandoned corridors without hurry, and somewhere deep within that continuity, your own breath finds the same calm tempo. You can let yourself settle into that tempo now, somewhere far across the centuries. Light continues to travel. As the night deepens around these ancient worlds, their shapes soften, their edges blur, and what once felt like distant history begins to feel like a gentle memory returning. Time stretches long and quiet, flowing through civilizations as calmly as breath moves through a resting body. You can drift a little lower now. In the highlands of Peru, the Chavin culture carved labyrinths beneath their temples, corridors twisting through stone, dark enough to muffle every sound. Some passageways are barely 1 meter wide, their ceilings low, their walls carved with faint patterns that catch torchlight in ripples. When priests moved through these chambers, trumpet-like conch shells echoed through the stone at frequencies designed to vibrate the chest, not the ears. Sound became a slow, physical presence, a hum that settled into bone. Across the Red Sea, ancient Nubia shaped pyramids that rise at sharper angles than those of Egypt's slender. Elegant silhouettes cast against the gold desert. More than 200 pyramids dot the quiet sands of Meroe, their stones warmed by sun and cooled rapidly at night as temperatures fall by 20 degrees Celsius. The shift creates a faint crackle through the rock, a whispering expansion and contraction that repeats every day like the world breathing in and out. You can rest inside that whisper. In Greece, the city of Knidos positioned its circular temple so that sunlight at noon would fall directly through the center, a narrow beam cutting the shadow with soft clarity. The temple's layout forms a perfect ratio, its diameter divided into sections, matching geometric principles used across the Hellenistic world. Everything was arranged so that light moved gently across marble, sliding like calm water around a curve. Your mind can follow that slow brightness. Farther east, in the lush valleys of Laos, the plain of jars stretches across rolling hills. Thousands of enormous stone vessels scattered like silent guardians. Some weigh over 6 tons, carved from sandstone and granite in quarries kilometers away. Their purpose remains uncertain, but their presence feels deliberate, each jar placed with care, as though marking the landscape with an unspoken rhythm. You can let your thoughts move with that rhythm. In ancient China, silk workshops hummed softly beneath wooden rafters darkened by age. Silkworm cocoons were unraveled into threads, stretching hundreds of meters, each filament so fine it could break with a breath. Yet, artisans guided them gently, turning reels by hand in motions as steady as falling rain. Some workshops produce cloth so light that a full bolt weighed less than a handful of feathers. The softness of that cloth seems to settle in the air around us. Along the Mediterranean coast, the Etruscans painted tomb walls with scenes of dancers, musicians, and quiet feasts. Pigments mixed from iron oxide, carbon black, and rare mineral blues still cling to plaster after 400 years. Their colors soften but alive. The frescoes depict not sorrow but continuity, a belief that life drifted gently into whatever came next. The mind can ease into that continuity. Crossing the Indian subcontinent, the early Vedic cultures performed rituals to the rhythm of recited hymns passed down orally for thousands of years. Some verses are so ancient they may date back to 1500 BCE. Their syllables arranged in meters that match natural breathing cycles. The recitations were not loud. They were steady, repeated in tones that wrapped the listeners in a soft, vibrational calm. You can drift in that calm. Everywhere we turn, ancient people shaped sound, stone, water, and light with patience that moves through the centuries like a low, continuous tide. Their worlds sway gently around us, pyramids cooling at dusk, terraced fields gleaming at sunrise, corridors echoing with distant horns, frescoes glowing with mineral dust. In their presence, your breath finds a slower rhythm and settles deeper into the body, somewhere in the long continuity of human time. Light continues to travel. The ancient world continues unfolding in quiet layers, each one softer than the last, as though time itself is dimming the lights and guiding us deeper into its long, slow breath. Everything settles into a gentler flow now. In the fertile crescent of Mesopotamia, the city of Mari once housed archives containing more than 20,000 clay tablets, each pressed by hand, each hardened in sunlight that warmed the desert day after day for millennia. The tablets recorded gifts, rituals, and the movement of caravans across long distances. Even silence feels fuller when surrounded by such careful memory. You can let your thoughts soften around it. On the island of Sardinia, the Nuragic civilization raised stone towers called nuragis. Some built as early as 1800 BCE. These structures rise in gentle cones, constructed from basalt blocks stacked without mortar, so finely balanced that many still stand after thousands of years of wind and salt air. Inside the towers, chambers curve upward in smooth corbelled arches, a shape that cradles sound and causes even a whisper to linger for a heartbeat longer. The mind can drift with that lingering. In the Ethiopian highlands, Lalibela's monolithic churches rest carved entirely from single blocks of volcanic rock. Workers shape these forms by cutting down into the earth rather than building up, removing stone grain by grain until walls, windows, and chambers emerged with the softness of sculpted clay. Some structures descend more than 10 meters below the plateau surface. The hush held inside their cool interiors feels ancient enough to steady the entire body. Across the Arabian desert, Thamudic inscriptions stretch across sandstone cliffs, curving letters carved by travelers who passed through these dry valleys over 2,000 years ago. Wind has blurred some strokes, left others sharp, and you can imagine the brief scratch of stone on rock echoing in empty air. The marks remain while the voices have faded, a gentle reminder that even small gestures can last longer than their moment. You can let the sense of time ease through you. In Vietnam's Red River Delta, the Dong Son culture shaped bronze drums with surfaces covered in concentric designs, stars, boats, birds, and gentle waves. Some drums measure over 80 centimeters wide and ring with a deep, resonant note when struck, a sound that carries across open fields like warm thunder rolling far away. Even imagined softly, the vibration seems to settle into the ribs, slow and grounding. Your breath can follow that resonance, traveling into the Sahel. The ancient city of Djenné rose from sun-baked mud brick, its architecture renewed each year after the rains. Earthen walls, up to 16 meters tall, were smoothed by entire communities working together in quiet rhythm, hands shaping the same clay that shaped their dwelling's warmth and texture. The repetition of motion press, smooth, release echoes the cadence of breathing at rest. You can drift in that cadence. In southern Arabia, frankincense trees grew in rocky soil where roots sought moisture in layers of limestone beneath the surface. Harvesters made gentle cuts in the bark, allowing resin to crystallize into pale, fragrant droplets over several warm days. These resins traveled thousands of kilometers along ancient incense routes, burning in temples and quiet homes alike. The scent rises slowly, a thin ribbon curling upward and disappearing into air. The world's edges seem softer when imagined through that fragrant haze. North in Anatolia, the Hadeans shaped ritual vessels with spouts and handles formed into birds and flowing lines. Some pieces, dating to 2500 BCE, appear almost animate spirals, unfolding like slow-moving wings. Their terracotta surfaces carry a warmth that still pulses faintly when exposed to afternoon sun. That warmth settles into thought like a small, steady ember. You can rest beside that ember. Everywhere we look, ancient worlds move at a different pace, a pace shaped by stone, water, wind, and the soft repetition of human hands. Their quiet presence brightens the night without disturbing it. A low glow rising peacefully from the deep well of time. In that glow, your breath deepens, your limbs loosen, and the weight of the present finds a gentler place to settle, somewhere beyond these drifting ages. Light continues to travel. The world of ancient memory expands once more, not outward, but inward, as though layers of time are folding back to reveal a quieter pulse beneath them all. Civilizations that once seemed distant now drift beside one another like lanterns floating across a slow, moonlit river. You can let your breath sink a little deeper. Near the coast of present-day Pakistan, the ancient port city of Lothal rested along channels that once connected directly to the sea. Harbors built with baked brick formed a basin almost 220 meters long, allowing ships to rise and fall with the tide. Floodwaters were controlled through clever sluice gates, the world's earliest known example of such engineering. The sound that would have filled this place, water shifting gently against stone, still echoes softly through its ruins. The mind can settle along that gentle motion. Farther inland, the Bactria Margiana Archaeological Complex revealed palaces arranged in perfect symmetry. Walls built from packed earth rose in straight, quiet lines, and almond-shaped seals carved from soft stone show figures with elaborate headdresses and calm, forward-facing eyes. Many objects were placed intentionally in shallow pits beneath floors, as if meant to anchor the space with steady presence. You can ease into that presence. In the ancient Levant, the city of Byblos grew from simple fishing village to bustling port, exporting cedar wood prized across the Mediterranean. Cedar trunks, some over 30 meters long, were floated in rafts along the coast, their scent sharp yet warm, infusing shipyards and markets alike. The aroma of cedar became a signature of the region, a quiet reminder of forests whispering in steady breezes thousands of years ago. Your thoughts can drift with that whisper across the rugged slopes of the Zagros Mountains. The Kassites left boundary stones known as Kuduru slabs carved with celestial symbols, mountain spirits, and smooth, curved inscriptions. Some stones contain star motifs representing constellations still visible today, their patterns unchanged across 500 years. The carvings appear shallow, yet they hold the weight of entire lineages, a record of land, water, and inheritance preserved through stone's slow patience. You can let that patience steady your breathing. To the north, in the wide grasslands of the Eurasian steppe, the early Saka people adorned horses with gold plaques shaped into felines, birds, and swirling patterns representing wind. Some plaques are just 2-3 centimeters wide, yet contain exquisite detail: gilded feathers, spiraling tails, tiny claws gripping unseen currents. When sunlight touches these objects today, they shimmer like fragments of dawn caught in metal. The mind can drift in the softness of that shimmer. In the forests of Southeast Asia, the ancient Sahuan culture crafted earthenware jars with scalloped rims and incised patterns that spiraled gently around their bodies. Glass beads, some colored a rich cobalt using imported minerals, were traded across islands over 2,000 years ago. Their surfaces remain cool to the touch, smooth from centuries of rest. You can let that coolness drift through the body like a slow exhale. Across the Nile in ancient Egypt, sun clocks marked the passing hours by the movement of shadows cast across carved scales. The devices were simple: a raised bar, a smooth face, a shadow sliding at roughly 15 degrees per hour, yet the experience of time felt slower, almost like watching light breathe. Temples were aligned so that sunrise illuminated inner sanctuaries only on specific days of the year, creating a soft bloom of brightness that moved across stone as gently as a drifting thought. You can rest in that bloom of light. Everywhere the ancient world touches us, its pace is slower than breath, its presence steadier than thought, its rhythm unbroken by urgency. Stone cooling in darkness, water shifting against docks, wind moving through cedar groves, gold flickering beneath morning sun, all of it settling together into a single, quiet hum. Within that hum, Your breath finds its own soft alignment, and the night deepens around you like a warm, unhurried tide. Somewhere across this old and gentle world, light continues to travel. The night settles even further across the ancient world, laying a soft veil over ruins, riverbeds, abandoned courtyards, and forgotten paths. Time moves with a muted pulse here, slow, deliberate, like the last embers in a long-burning hearth. You can let yourself ease into that hush. On the northern coast of Africa, the Carthaginian world once shimmered with markets shaped by wind and salt air. Pottery kilns heated to 901,000 degrees Celsius glowed like quiet suns along the shoreline, their warmth spreading through narrow alleys as artisans shaped amphorae to carry wine, oil, and grains across vast trade routes. The steady repetition of this work still lingers like a faint warmth in the hands. You can follow that warmth inward. In the mountains of Armenia, observatories such as Karahunj stand in lonely, wind-brushed silence, circles of standing stones, pierced with small openings, aligned to celestial events. Some alignments mark solstices, others the rising of specific stars, moving at their slow, precise pace, 1 degree every 4 minutes across the sky. Stone and sky held conversation here. A quiet dialogue carried on without words. The mind can drift with that quiet dialogue. Across the Aegean, the Cycladic people carved marble figurines with smooth, folded arms and features reduced to calm. Abstract lines. Many stand fewer than 30 centimeters tall. Their surfaces polished with sand until they felt like river stones washed for centuries. The simplicity of their shapes brings a soft clarity to the senses. Nothing sharp, nothing hurried, only quiet form. You can breathe into that clarity. Journeying west, the Iberian Peninsula holds caves painted with animal silhouettes in red ochre and charcoal. Some images, more than 7,000 years old, depict deer, mid-step, neck bent toward grass, as though still tasting the moment in which they were drawn. The artists used firelight to guide their strokes, allowing shadows to flicker over the walls and bring movement to stillness. That gentle flicker feels like a memory shared across species and time. Your breath can follow its rhythm. In the islands of Indonesia, the Dongsan influence traveled by boat, reaching distant shores through slow, intentional journeys. Bronze drums placed in ceremonial settings could be heard over water for hundreds of meters, their deep tone rolling out like a calm, steady wave. Even imagined in the quiet of night, the resonance spreads through the body in widening circles, warm and grounding. You can loosen into that grounding. To the north, in the forests of Siberia, the Okunev culture carved stone stelae with faces stretching upward, eyes wide and serene. Some figures stand nearly 2 meters tall, their surfaces smoothed by centuries of wind-blown sand. They watch over the steppes in a silence so complete that even the faintest breeze feels like a presence. The world grows softer under their gaze. In the dry canyons of the American Southwest, the ancestral Puebloans built dwellings into cliffs that glow amber at dusk. Some structures sit 30 meters above the canyon floor, reached by handholds carved into stone, simple grooves worn smooth by thousands of careful touches. When night falls, The canyon walls hold warmth from the day's sun, slowly releasing it as temperatures drop. The release feels like the exhale of a world resting beside you. You can sink gently into that exhale. Across the Indian Ocean, the island cultures of Madagascar wove reeds and grasses into mats patterned with geometric repeats. Their symmetry inspired by tidal rhythms and moon cycles. These mats lined wood homes, softening footsteps and quieting the interior spaces. The scent of dried grass still lingers in some ancient dwellings, a smell warm and faintly sweet. Like sunlight resting on woven fibers, you can let that warmth ease through the chest. The more we drift through these civilizations, the clearer it becomes that the human story is not merely one of invention, ambition, or noise. It is a long unfolding of soft gestures, a pot lifted from a kiln, a stone aligned with a star, a pigment mixed at dusk, a drum struck in ceremony, a carving smoothed by wind. These gestures form a quiet continuity, a thread running through time that feels steady enough to hold you here, safe and unhurried. As night deepens around your breath, somewhere beyond these drifting ages, light continues to travel. The ancient world opens into another gentle landscape, a place where memory thins like morning mist and history feels less like a timeline and more like the slow movement of breath across centuries. Civilizations fade in and out of view as if carried by a warm, unhurried wind. You can rest a little deeper in that wind. In the far Andes, the Wari culture built road networks that stretched for hundreds of kilometers, stone paths following ridgelines that rose and fell in long, rolling contours. Travelers moved along these routes with steady footfalls, their pace matching the thin mountain air, stone retaining walls, some still standing, held terraces that glowed gold in dry seasons and deep green after rains. You can let that slow shift of color ease into your breath. Across the Pacific, the Lapita people sailed between islands with pottery adorned in intricate dentate designs, patterns pressed into clay using small, pointed tools. These pieces, some 200 years old, carry repeating triangles and flowing curves like tiny maps of waves, the clink of cooling pottery, the hush of a canoe on shallow water, the sound of paddle blades dipping in rhythm. All of it forms a quiet musicality that softens the edges of the night. Your mind can drift with that quiet music. Moving westward, the ancient city of Susa developed one of the earliest glazed tiles, using copper and lead compounds to produce turquoise and deep blue surfaces. Kilns reached 1,000 degrees Celsius, but the firing process was slow, managed by artisans who listened to the changing breath of heat through clay chambers. When assembled on palace walls, the tiles glowed like fragments of sky resting on earth. You can settle into that glow. In Nubia's once fertile lands, water wheels, called sakya, lifted Nile water into fields, their wooden frames turning gently with the rhythm of animals walking in circles. Some wheels were nearly 4 meters wide, carrying water step by slow step to terraces of millet, barley, and flowering plants that nodded in breeze. The sound of creaking beams and dripping water formed a lullaby that lingered through warm nights. You can let that sound smooth your thoughts. farther east. The Sogdians shaped their cities along the Silk Road, Samarkand, Bukhara, and beyond, places where blue glazed domes rose above courtyards filled with shadow and cool air. Merchants painted their walls with gentle scenes of dancers, riders, and flowing scarves, their pigments mixed from crushed minerals collected in distant mountains. Some murals remain after 500 years. The colors softened but steady, like dreams lingering at the edge of waking. You can drift into that softness. Across the Arctic Circle, the Sami people followed reindeer migrations through landscapes shaped by cold and silence. Sled runners, carved from birch, glided along snow hardened by wind, the sound more whisper than motion. Clothing, made from reindeer hide, kept warmth close to the skin, and dyed bands of woven cloth carried simple geometric designs that marked family and region. In the stillness of polar night, the world felt held in a single, long exhale. Your breath can join that exhale. In the valleys of Central America, the Zapotecs built Monte Alban on a leveled mountaintop, its summit cut flat with deliberate patience. The city's orientation matched the movement of the sun and stars, with corners aligned to cardinal directions long before magnetic compasses existed. Some structures stand over 40 meters long, their steps worn smooth from centuries of quiet passage. The air around them feels steady, almost expectant, as though waiting for the next slow turning of seasons. You can ease into that steadiness. Every civilization we pass through shares the same gentle truth that the ancient world moved slowly, not out of limitation, but out of harmony with the rhythms around it. Stone cooled at dusk. Water followed gravity's patient pull. Wind carried stories across plains at the speed of breath. Everything was allowed to take the time it needed. In that allowance, your own thoughts loosen, your body softens, and the night opens even wider to hold you in its quiet. Somewhere beyond these drifting landscapes, light continues to travel. The ancient world stretches quieter as we move deeper, as though the night itself is gathering all these civilizations into a single, slow-beating pulse. Edges blur, colors soften, everything feels wrapped in a warm and patient dusk. You can allow your breath to follow that gentleness. In the valleys of ancient Iran, the Elamite culture shaped temples from mud brick walls mixed with straw and sun-dried until firm. Some bricks still hold fingerprints pressed into them nearly 4,000 years ago, small marks of presence held in silence for millennia. Their ziggurats rose in layered terraces, each platform a little smaller than the one below, creating a slow, upward drift of form toward sky and starlight. You can lean into that upward drift. Across the Mediterranean, the Minoans painted dolphins on the walls of seaside palaces, graceful arcs of blue and white that seemed to move even in stillness. Pigments made from crushed azurite and charcoal held their color through 3.5 millennia, protected by ash, time, and the quiet air of ruins. Some rooms contain fragments of delicate floral patterns, saffron crocuses, reeds bending in breeze, petals shaped with steady hands. The mind feels lighter within those colors. North into the forests of Europe, the Hallstatt culture forged iron blades, heated in charcoal furnaces that glowed at 200 degrees Celsius. Blacksmiths worked in measured rhythm, hammer rising and falling, sparks drifting like fireflies in the dim workshops. The ringing iron softened into steadiness when repeated for long hours, becoming almost like a slow heartbeat pulsing through the walls. You can rest in that steady pulse. Across the islands of Polynesia, stone, marae, open air, ceremonial grounds were aligned with the path of rising stars. Flat stones were placed in deliberate, balanced arrangements, creating an open space where the sky felt near enough to touch with thought alone. Some marae date back over 1,000 years. Their surfaces warmed each morning and cooled by ocean breeze at night. The ocean's breath moves across them still. Your mind can drift with that breath. In the wetlands of northern Germany, the ancient site of Nebra revealed a bronze disc inlaid with gold representations of the moon, the sun, and stars. The largest star cluster depicted is believed to be the Pleiades, a grouping easily visible to the naked eye for more than 100,000 years. The disk glows softly under dim light, a quiet map of sky preserved in metal for nearly 4 millennia. You can let that quiet map widen your sense of stillness. Across Africa's Great Lakes region, ancient terraced hillsides shaped farmland that followed the gentle rise of slopes. Stone retaining walls held soil in place for centuries, allowing banana groves, millet, and tubers to flourish. The terraces shimmered green beneath a sky that shifted slowly from dawn to dusk, creating a daily rhythm that wrapped communities in calm predictability. You can sink into that calm rhythm. In the Australian interior, rock shelters bear paintings that may be up to 40,000 years old. White ochre figures dance in arcs, elongated as though moving between worlds. Hand stencils press into stone like soft echoes of presence, not signatures of identity, but signs of existence. A gentle reminder that someone stood there long ago, breathing under the same sky. Your breath can join that continuity. Across ancient Turkey, the Hattian and Hittite cultures left relief carvings of mountains, rivers, and deities with flowing robes etched into limestone. Some carvings lie along open-air sanctuaries where sunlight moves through narrow channels to illuminate specific images only during certain times of year. The alignment suggests a long, patient observation of celestial cycles. The sky treated not as mystery, but as companion. You can feel that companionship settle into the quiet around you. The further we drift, the more the ancient world feels like a slow tide rising beneath all thoughts, steady, rhythmic, gentle, stone warmed by centuries of sunlight, rivers carving valleys grain by grain, wind traveling across empty plains at the pace of breath. Everything moves without hurry. And in that absence of urgency, the body loosens its hold on the day. Somewhere deep within this gentle tide, your breath grows almost weightless, and beneath it all, as always, light continues to travel. The ancient world stretches into a softer horizon now, as if time itself is growing quieter, pressing gently against the edges of thought. Civilizations drift into view like constellations, separate, yet glowing with the same patient light. You can let your breath fall low and unhurried. In the deep valleys of Ethiopia, the ancient kingdom of Aksum raised obelisks carved from single pieces of granite, some standing over 20 meters tall. Their surfaces carry carved windows and symbolic doors, as if the stone were shaped into the memory of a house that once held stories and warmth. The tallest obelisks cast long shadows at dawn, stretching silently across earth that has known thousands of mornings. The mind can lean gently into those long shadows. Farther north, the island of Cyprus glimmered with copper mines that fed tools, ornaments, and trade networks for more than 2,000 years. Miners followed veins of ore through cool underground passages, their lamps flickering against walls marbled with mineral traces. When metal melted in furnaces above ground, the air filled with a faint hum, the sound of heat shifting through copper at 1,083 degrees Celsius. You can let that faint hum drift through the chest, soft and distant. Across India's western coast, the Harappan city of Dholavira arranged its streets with a precision rare even in later eras. Reservoirs carved into stone captured rainwater and river overflow, some measuring over 70 meters in length. The city glowed with white gypsum plaster that reflected sunlight, creating gentle brightness in homes and courtyards. No sharp shadows, only soft light pooling in quiet corners. You can rest in that soft light. In the grassy plains of West Africa, the ancient settlement of Jene Jeno rose along the Niger floodplain. Its architecture shaped from mud brick, renewed each year with community effort. Walls were smoothed by steady hands, layer after layer, added as though time itself were being rebuilt. The city grew without defensive walls, spreading in gentle circles like ripples around a dropped stone. The world seems calmer within that openness. Far to the north, the Scythians carved wooden figures buried deep within frozen tombs, preserved by permafrost for over 400 years. Some carvings depict animals, mid-motion elk with elongated legs, birds with flowing feathers, yet all appear peaceful, as though caught in the moment just before sleep. The wood, darkened with age, takes on a soft, earthy glow under low light. You can let that glow rest along your breath. In Southeast Asia, the ancient Cham people constructed red brick temples whose precise joints still puzzle researchers. The bricks appear fused, as if sealed by heat from within rather than mortar between them. Some structures tilt gently with time, yet remain standing through monsoon winds and coastal air. Carved lintels depict swirling flames, softened now into curves that feel almost like drifting clouds. You can ease into those drifting shapes. Toward the Mediterranean again, ancient Crete's peak sanctuaries stood on mountaintops where wind sang through natural stone formations. Offerings placed here included small figurines and clay models of houses and animals, simple tokens of daily life, lifted into the quiet of high altitude. From these heights, the sea stretched wide and silver blue, changing color slowly with the angle of the sun. The mind moves slowly with those shifting colors. Across the Indus, the early farming villages of Mehrgar crafted beads from carnelian, lapis lazuli, and turquoise stones warmed in fire and cooled in shaded rooms until ready to shape. Some beads required weeks of polishing to achieve their glass-like finish. The repetition of polishing, the patience of it, created a rhythm as steady as breath. You can sink gently into that rhythm. As these civilizations unfold together, their textures merge, stone cooling at twilight, water shining in reservoirs, wind moving through sacred heights, the faint glow of ancient fire reflecting on copper and carnelian. All of it forms a slow chorus that drifts beneath thought, holding everything in a wide, quiet cradle. In that cradle, your breath loosens, your shoulders soften, and the long night deepens like a warm tide rising around you. Somewhere across this ancient stillness, light continues to travel. The ancient world feels even softer now, as if the weight of centuries has settled into a warm, low drift around everything we pass. Stone, light, wind, and dust move together in slow harmony. You can allow your breath to match that harmony. Across the rugged mountains of Peru, the Chachapoya people shaped cliffside dwellings overlooking deep valleys wrapped in mist. Some structures perch 70 meters above the ground, their circular rooms built with stones so carefully balanced that even after 1,000 years, they still hold their shape. The wind here carries a hollow, flute-like tone as it moves between the cliffs, a sound that thins the world into calm. The mind can drift into that thinning. Farther north, in Mesoamerica, the Olmec carved colossal stone heads from basalt transported over 70 kilometers from volcanic fields. Each head can weigh up to 20 tons, yet the carving is smooth, with serene expressions that feel neither stern nor joyful, only deeply present, like sentinels on the edge of sleep. When rain touches their surfaces, the droplets gather into tiny reflective pools, softening every line. You can rest inside that softened presence. Across the Black Sea, the ancient Thracians shaped tombs with domed chambers built beneath grassy mounds. Some domes span over 10 meters across, their stones fitted into perfect circular arcs. Inside, faint echoes linger even when no sound is made, the kind of resonance that turns silence into a physical feeling. Painted walls depict gentle scenes of feasts and riders. Colors warm with iron oxide, reds, and faded blues. You can let that warm quiet settle across your chest. Far east, near Lake Baikal, the Kurikan people carved markers along the shoreline. Simple, upright stones, aligned with solar positions. During solstices, sunrise, light hits them at angles that cast shadows, stretching dozens of meters across frost. The light moves slowly here, as though reluctant to disturb the cold. Your breath can follow that slow drift of light. On the island of Taiwan, the ancient Austronesian cultures carved slate coffins with patterns of waves and spirals. The slate, formed by millennia of pressure, splits cleanly into smooth surfaces that catch light in thin, silver lines. Some carvings depict fish, birds, and flowing water motifs, tracing the rhythm of island life. Stone, warmed by morning sun, radiates a soft, steady heat that feels almost like touch. You can sink into that warmth. Far across the Arabian Peninsula, the oasis settlement of Tama held wells that reached over 50 meters into the earth. The water drawn from them was cool, mineral-rich, and carried faint echoes as buckets descended and rose. Palm groves shimmered in dry wind, their fronds brushing together in gentle, repetitive whispers. You can rest inside that whispering cadence. In the forests of Mesoamerica, the ancient Mixtec people crafted turquoise mosaics using thousands of tiny stone fragments, each no larger than a fingernail. The stones were set into wood or bone using natural resins, forming masks, shields, and ceremonial objects that glow with shifting greens and blues. Some mosaics contain over 2,000 individual pieces, yet their surfaces feel seamless, a single breath of color. The mind smooths itself against that breath. Across Europe's Atlantic coast, megalithic passage tombs face sunrise on specific days when light travels through narrow corridors and illuminates carved spirals deep within the chamber. The moment lasts only minutes, yet the alignment required careful observation across many seasons. Inside those chambers, sound becomes hushed, absorbed by thick stone, until everything feels suspended, a stillness so complete it eases tension from the body. You can let that stillness hold you. As these ancient echoes drift together, they form a single, quiet tapestry, a weave of stone, breath, wind, firelight, and patient hands. No urgency, no noise, only the slow unfolding of civilizations breathing across time. Within that unfolding, your awareness loosens, your breath softens, and the night settles deeper around your resting form. Somewhere through this long, gentle drift, light continues to travel. The ancient world drifts into an even quieter terrain now, where mountains are softer silhouettes and deserts widen into pale, uninterrupted calm. Each civilization feels like a gentle impression left on the surface of time, not carved, not forced, simply resting there. You can allow your breath to settle into that resting. In the foothills of eastern Turkey, the kingdom of Commagene carved colossal sandstone heads atop Mount Nemrut, each nearly 2 meters tall. Though fallen from their original seated forms, their faces remain serene, eyes half lowered as if drifting into thought. At dawn, sunlight touches them first before it reaches the valleys below, creating a soft gold glow that warms the stone just enough to release the coolness trapped overnight. You can lean into that slow warmth. Across the northern deserts of Sudan, the Kerma culture created Defufa structures, massive mud brick monuments rising in stepped layers. Some walls remain over 15 meters high, their mud brick texture softened by centuries of wind. Inside, rooms once held offering tables, their surfaces worn smooth from ritual touch. The faint echo that lingers there feels like a memory with no urgency, no demand, only presence. Your thoughts can settle into that presence. Farther east, ancient Borneo communities carved canoes from single tree trunks, some stretching 10 to 12 meters long. The wood was hollowed with slow, careful burning and polished by hand until the vessel glided effortlessly along river surfaces, mirror smooth at dawn. Fish darted beneath the hull in silver flashes, and the only sound was the soft dip of a paddle marking time in gentle intervals. You can follow that slow interval of sound. North along the Silk Road, the Tarim Basin revealed mummies preserved by dry desert air for nearly 4,000 years. Their textiles plaid wool, woven belts, soft leather boots remain remarkably intact. Colors faded to warm rust and soft cream. Camel caravans once passed through here at a pace of 3-4 kilometers per hour, their bells chiming softly against the wind. The rhythm of those bells still seems to drift along the dunes. You can rest inside that rhythm. In the Mediterranean highlands, the Illyrians built circular stone forts with walls fitted so precisely that thin grasses now grow between the joints. Tiny green threads woven across ancient gray. Some forts stand over 20 meters across. Their interiors open to sky, where clouds slide slowly over worn stone. That openness carries a feeling of gentle exposure. As though the land is offering its quiet, you can ease into that openness. Across the plains of Central Asia, the Khwarezm civilization shaped clay brick citadels that rise like islands of memory above the desert. Walls once painted in red iron oxide mixed with water have faded into rose tones beneath the sun. Some bricks retain fingerprints pressed into them over 2,000 years ago. These traces, still visible, soften time into something you can almost touch. You can let that softness move through your breath. In South America's Andean foothills, the Paracas culture created textiles of extraordinary fineness, some woven with threads only 0.3 millimeters thick. Designs depict birds, waves, and flowing forms in deep reds and golds, colors drawn from cochineal and plant dyes. The fabric feels weightless, like cloth made from warm air. When unfurled, it moves in slow ripples that resemble drifting water. Your mind can move in those ripples. At the edge of the Mediterranean, the ancient city of Ugarit left behind clay tablets inscribed with one of the earliest alphabets. Just 30 symbols, simple and clear, shaped for ease of writing and learning. The marks look plain at first glance, yet they hold the quiet power of a system that would eventually shape countless languages. Their simplicity feels like a breath released without effort. You can release your breath like that too. As these civilizations drift across the landscape of memory, they seem less like separate chapters and more like gentle variations on the same human longing for meaning, for rhythm, for stillness. Every stone, every vessel, every carved symbol belongs to a world that moved at the pace of dawn. Within that pace, your breath slows further, your body sinks deeper, and the night wraps itself a little more closely around your resting form. Somewhere across the quiet tapestry of ages, light continues to travel. The ancient world feels even more distant now, yet somehow closer in its quiet, as though every forgotten city and every soft ruin is leaning gently toward the night with you. The air within this memory grows warmer, deeper, almost weightless. You can let yourself drift into that weightlessness. Near the shores of the Caspian Sea, the ancient land of Hyrcania stretched in dense forests where tigers once moved silently beneath towering oaks. Archaeologists uncovered ceramic vessels dating back over 2,000 years, their surfaces painted with looping vines that echo the changing shape of long-shadowed trees. The region's humidity preserved wood and cloth in rare pockets of still air, a quiet archive of daily life wrapped in green light. You can settle into that gentle green quiet. Far across the mountains of Central Asia, the ancient Sarmatians shaped kurgans lined with felt, wood, and woven mats. Some tombs contain horse trappings embroidered with gold plaques, so thin they flutter in the slightest breeze. The wind, moving through steppe grass, carries a steady hush, a soft, sighing sound that repeats across hundreds of kilometers of open land. Your breath can join that steady hush. In the Japanese archipelago, the Yayoi people cultivated wet rice in terraced fields that shimmered with mirrored water. Early paddies dug into valley floors allowed communities to grow with rhythmic cycles of planting and harvesting. Bronze bells, known as dotaku, were cast with patterns of lines and animals, their chimes faint, almost like distant raindrops. Some stand nearly 5 meters tall. The tone of these bells seems to soften the space around it, gathering calm like dew. You can ease into that gathered calm. On the Arabian Peninsula, the ancient Dedonite and Lehionite peoples carved monumental lion tombs into the sandstone cliffs of Alula. The lions' faces, though worn by time, retain an expression of quiet guardianship. The cliffs glow rose gold at dusk, cooling to violet as night rises. Temperature shifts of 15-20 degrees Celsius cause faint pops in the rock, a gentle settling that echoes through the canyons. The world loosens in those echoes. On the grassy plains of Eastern Europe, the Cucuteni Tripilia culture built homes with painted interiors, geometric spirals in red and white that gave each room a slow, rhythmic feeling. When houses were ritually burned to begin anew, temperatures reached over 900 degrees Celsius, turning clay floors to ceramic that would last millennia. Archaeologists uncover these floors now, still warm in color, still holding faint impressions of woven mats and footsteps. You can drift along those faint impressions. In the river valleys of ancient Thailand, the early Dvaravati culture crafted wheel-made pottery with elegant flaring rims and soft, concentric grooves. From these same workshops came bronze Buddha images with eyes half closed, lips curved in subtle calm. Some statues stand over 2 meters tall, yet their presence feels as light as a resting breath. The mind softens near that gentleness. Across the Mediterranean once more, Phoenician ships sailed between islands at night, guided by the North Star's steady, reliable glow. The star shifts position by only less than a degree over many human lifetimes, making it a quiet anchor for travelers moving through the dark. The rocking of wooden hulls, the hush of water against the bow, the lantern light swaying, all created a slow cradle that carried merchants across calm seas. You can sink into that cradle now, far to the south, in the valleys of modern-day Zimbabwe. Great Zimbabwe's stone walls curve in long, sweeping arcs. No mortar holds them, just gravity, balance, and hands that arrange granite blocks with deliberate calm. Some walls rise over 10 meters, their surfaces warmed by sun and cooled each evening into deep, soothing shadow. Those shadows feel like the quiet edge of sleep. Your breath can dissolve into that quiet. As all these landscapes gather around you, stone circles, terraced fields, painted chambers, salt winds, lantern-lit decks, they merge into a single soft current, moving beneath thought. The ancient world breathes slowly, and with each breath, your whole being grows lighter, looser, ready to drift deeper into the night. Somewhere far inside this widening calm, light continues to travel. The ancient world drifts into its quietest form now, a low, shimmering presence that feels less like a place and more like a breath exhaled across millennia. Ruins soften into silhouettes. Rivers fade into faint silver ribbons. Everything grows still, as though time is resting beside you. You can let yourself rest with it. Deep in the deserts of western China, the ancient city of Nia once lined an oasis where silk roads converged. Wooden tablets written over one, 700 years ago, still preserve faint ink traced by hands long dissolved into sand. Some tablets describe small details: a goat sold for grain, a borrowed animal, a day of rest, quiet, human notes held gently in dry air. You can ease into the tenderness of those small notes. Farther north, in the Altai Mountains, the Pazyryk culture crafted felt carpets with patterns of horses, deer, and swirling red borders. One carpet, preserved in ice, maybe over 400 years old, its color still vivid because frost sealed it perfectly against decay. The fibers, warm in appearance, feel almost like breathing earth when touched lightly. Your breath can drift along those soft fibers. Across the Arabian Peninsula, the ancient oasis of Hegra holds tombs carved in towering sandstone cliffs. Some facades reach over 20 meters high, their edges smoothed by centuries of wind and temperature shifts. Inside, chambers remain cool, holding shadows that gather slowly as the day retreats. A silence here thickens like dusk, a steadying hush that fills the chest. You can let that hush guide your breathing. In the river plains of Cambodia, ancient Funan ports once welcomed traders from distant lands: India, China, the Malay world. Canals cut through wetlands formed efficient passages, some stretching over 30 kilometers. Boats moved through them quietly, their hulls brushing reeds that whispered against water. The whisper is faint now, but it lingers like a soft texture beneath thought. You can move with that faintness. High above Iran's Zagros Mountains, Sasanian fire temples glowed with flames fed by aromatic woods and oils. Some flames burned continuously for hundreds of years, tended with slow ritual. The heat shimmered upward, dancing in thin waves that trembled against stone arches. Even imagining that warmth loosens tension in the body. You can loosen into that warmth in the Andean cloud forests of Ecuador. The Valdivia culture shaped figurines, soft, rounded forms representing daily life, fertility, and quiet contemplation. Some date back 4,000 years, their surfaces smoothed by countless hands passing them as offerings. They feel calm, as though they were shaped by people who worked to the rhythm of waves sliding onto shore. The mind softens with the rhythm of those waves. Along the western coast of Africa, the Nok region's terracotta figures stand with elongated faces, delicate brows, and wide, meditative eyes. These sculptures once sat in shrines open to sky and weather, yet many survived with their details intact. The carved curls of hair, the small perforations for ornaments. Their presence radiates a quiet watchfulness that settles the breath. You can allow that watchfulness to steady your inner pace. Across the northern Mediterranean, the ancient Etruscans crafted mirrors from bronze, polished so finely they could reflect light with surprising clarity. Some mirrors are over 500 years old, yet the scenes engraved on their backs, vine scrolls, birds, softly posed, figures still gleam under low illumination. Holding one feels like holding a still pool of light. You can let that stillness expand gently inside you. All these civilizations, their pottery, their roads, their carvings, their quiet households now drift together in one gentle current. History becomes less a sequence and more a slow breeze moving across your thoughts, softening each edge, loosening each moment until nothing presses anymore. And in that loosened space, your breath falls into a silent rhythm, a rhythm older than any monument, older than any script, older than memory itself. Somewhere across this quiet earth, light continues to travel. The ancient world lies almost weightless now, as if its long history is dissolving into a soft haze that settles gently across the night. Nothing rises sharply. Nothing insists on being remembered. It all simply breathes in a slow, continuous way. You can let your breath follow that continuity. Along the fertile plains of Mesopotamia, the ancient city of Ur glimmered once with ziggurats that rose above surrounding lands. The great ziggurat, built nearly 4,000 years ago, still holds its stepped silhouette against pale desert skies. Mud brick cores, hardened by sun and outer layers baked to stone, kept its structure firm through thousands of seasons. When winds move through its corridors today, they produce a low, humming resonance, the soft voice of ancient air. You can drift inside that resonance, northwards. In the lands of ancient Anatolia, the Phrygians carved rock-cut facades into cliff walls, their geometric patterns shaped with deliberate symmetry. Some facades rise over 15 meters tall, their surfaces catching morning light in slow golden bands. Within nearby tomb chambers, the temperature stays cool and constant. Even when the sun is high, the air there feels still, dense with quiet. Your breath can settle into that stillness. Across the islands of the Mediterranean, the early Maltese temples formed, spiraled, organic chambers built from limestone blocks weighing several tons each. These temples, older than Stonehenge, some dating to 3,600 BCE, were arranged in curves, mirroring the shape of shells in tidal flow. Acoustic tests reveal that low tones sung within them echo for long seconds, reverberating gently through stone. You can let that long echo lengthen the space inside your chest. Far east, in the mountains of China, the Sangxingdui culture's bronze masks stretch into elongated, dreamlike proportions. Some stand over 3 meters tall, cast using complex molds that required high-temperature furnaces exceeding 1,000 degrees Celsius. Their wide eyes, slender brows, and subtle lines give them an otherworldly calm, not frightening, but deeply still. Like thoughts held just before sleep, you can let that stillness move through you. In the heart of the Sahara, the Garamantes built underground Foggara channels stretching tens of kilometers, drawing water from deep aquifers to nourish fields in hidden valleys. Workers carved these passages with simple hand tools, moving earth grain by grain in the cool shade beneath desert heat. The sound inside these tunnels would have been faint, a slow drip, a shuffle of sand, a distant echo. Your awareness can drift into that hushed underground world, Across the Amazon basin, traces of geometric earthworks reveal ancient settlements carefully planned into circles and squares. Some enclosures measure over 300 meters across. Their ditches and berms aligned with cardinal directions. Grass now grows over their edges, and trees sway softly above them. But the quiet rhythm of their design remains intact. You can rest inside that quiet geometry. In the cool forests of northern Europe, ancient bog bodies were preserved for over 2,000 years by acidic peat and low oxygen. Clothing fibers, hair, and even fingerprints remain visible. In some cases, delicate details held in a natural cradle of stillness. Nothing here feels haunting. It feels suspended, paused in a gentle silence that asks for nothing. You can loosen a little more into that pause. Across the Japanese archipelago, stone circles of the Jomon era sit open beneath sky, some marking solstices with carefully aligned stones. When sunlight enters these circles at just the right angle, it illuminates central points in a thin, warm beam that lingers for minutes before drifting away. The slowness of that light mirrors the slowness of thought as sleep approaches. Your breath can follow that drifting light. All these places, the cool chambers, the soft dunes, the patterned stones, the faint echoes form a single, quiet continuum now. Nothing stands apart. Nothing breaks the calm. Everything joins the same low tide, moving under your awareness. Within that tide, your breath grows longer, your body warmer, your thoughts lighter and more diffused. And somewhere across this ancient, dimming world, light continues to travel, and now the ancient world grows quiet again, folding its long stories back into the soft dark. You've traveled so far tonight, through deserts, temples, oceans, and memories older than memory itself. All that remains now is the slow rhythm of your breath and the gentle weight of rest settling around you. You breathe softly, and the universe exhales through you. Nothing else is needed. Nothing else is waiting. You are safe. You are warm. And the night holds you in its quiet glow. Light still travels, and you can finally drift low. You are home. You can rest now.